Your muscles are not ignoring you because you're not working hard enough. They're ignoring you because you're not sending the right signal. There are 3 specific biological triggers that actually cause muscle to grow, and most people accidentally skip at least 2 of them every single session. The most counterintuitive one is the reason you're probably plateaued right now, and it's the one worth staying for. Your muscle grows when it's forced to handle load it can barely manage. That's not a metaphor, it's a literal molecular event. When a muscle fiber is placed under genuine mechanical tension, real strain, real stretch, real resistance, it activates a signaling pathway called mTOR, which is essentially the body's construction crew showing up for work. mTOR triggers muscle protein synthesis, the process where your body actually lays down new tissue. No tension signal, no construction crew. Simple as that. Here's where most people quietly fail this. They're moving weight, yes, but they're using momentum to do it. A bicep curl that swings up and drops down isn't loading the muscle, it's loading the joint at the top and gravity on the way down. The fiber never had to fight for the full range, the signal never fired. You did the rep, but the muscle didn't get the memo. That's not training, that's choreography with a dumbbell. The fix isn't complicated. Slow the rep down. Own the bottom of the movement, where the muscle is fully lengthened and maximally loaded. That's where mechanical tension peaks. One controlled rep under real load does more for growth than 20 bouncy ones. Not because it's harder in a general sense, but because it's the only version that actually trips the switch. Most people go lighter than they should to protect their ego, rush the rep to look smooth, and cut the range of motion to avoid discomfort. Every single one of those habits is a way of accidentally telling your muscle it doesn't need to grow. You've been working hard and sending the wrong signal. Now, the second mechanism, and this one lives in the burn. When a muscle stays under load long enough without a break, metabolic byproducts accumulate inside the fiber. Lactate, hydrogen ions, cellular swelling. That tight burning, almost unbearable sensation near the end of a hard set? That's not just discomfort. That's metabolic stress, and it's a legitimate secondary growth signal. The cell is registering that its environment has been pushed past normal, and it responds by adapting. The mistake here is rest time, specifically, too much of it. When you rest 4 minutes between every set, the metabolic environment fully resets, the burn clears, the signal dissipates. You essentially hit the restart button before the message had time to land. Hypertrophy research points to the 60 to 90 second rest window as the range that keeps metabolic stress elevated between sets, long enough to partially recover, short enough that the signal stays live. Now you might already be forming a counter-argument. You've heard that longer rests are better for building strength. You're not wrong. For pure 1-rep max strength, longer rests do allow more complete neuromuscular recovery, and that matters when the goal is moving maximum load. But that's a strength adaptation, not a hypertrophy adaptation. If your goal is muscle size, you're not optimizing for your nervous system, you're optimizing for the cellular environment inside the fiber. Those are different targets, and they respond to different conditions. Chasing strength protocols when you want size is like watering a plant with the right amount of water at the wrong time of day. The intention is right. The execution misses. So, mechanical tension tells the fiber to build. Metabolic stress tells the fiber the environment demands it. 2 signals, 2 mechanisms, and you now know exactly which training habits accidentally mute both of them. But those 2 explain why you grow. The third mechanism explains why you stop, and almost nobody talks about it. Which of those 2 habits has been killing your gains, rushing the rep, or resting too long between sets? Drop your answer in the comments below, because the third mechanism is the one that actually explains why progress stalls even when you're doing the first 2 Right. Those first two mechanisms explain the chemistry of growth. This third one explains why the chemistry eventually goes quiet, and it's the reason training hard for months can still leave you exactly where you started. When a muscle fiber is pushed beyond what it's handled before, it sustains microscopic damage, not injury, damage at the cellular level, tiny tears in the fiber structure. Your body detects those tears, sends in specialized repair cells called satellite cells, and those cells fuse to the damaged fiber and rebuild it slightly thicker and stronger than it was before. That's the mechanism behind actual long-term growth. The soreness you feel 24 to 48 hours after a hard session, that deep, stiff ache, that's the repair process mid-construction. The soreness itself isn't the goal, but the process causing it absolutely is. Here's where it goes wrong. Most people find a routine that works, and they run it into the ground. Same exercises, same weight, same rep count, week after week. And for the first few weeks, that works fine because the stimulus is still novel. But then the muscle adapts. It's rebuilt itself to handle exactly that load. The microscopic damage stops happening because the fiber is now strong enough to take that stress without tearing. The satellite cells stop showing up. The repair signal goes silent, and the muscle has zero biological reason to add anything new. That's the plateau. It's not a mystery. It's not a sign you've hit your genetic ceiling or that you need a new program. It's your body being ruthlessly efficient. Your body doesn't want to be bigger. It wants to survive on as little energy as possible. Muscle is metabolically expensive tissue. Your body will only build more of it if you keep forcing the question. The moment you stop forcing it, the answer is always no. This is what progressive overload actually means, and it's the master key that keeps all three mechanisms firing at once. Adding more load over time re-triggers mechanical tension. Increasing volume or compressing rest periods re-triggers metabolic stress. Introducing a novel stimulus, a new angle, a new movement pattern, a heavier weight, re-triggers muscle damage and the repair cycle that follows it. You don't need all three to happen in every single session. But over time, if none of them are being pushed forward, you're maintaining, not growing. The numbers here are not dramatic, and that's the point. Adding one extra rep or adding a small increment of weight per week compounds into measurable size change within 8 to 12 weeks. You don't need to double your workload. You need to give the muscle a slightly harder question than it answered last time. That's the entire game. Now go back to the version of you who has been training consistently, showing up, working hard, and not growing. That person wasn't lazy. That person was sending a signal the muscle had already solved. The muscle filed it under handled and moved on. The effort was real. The stimulus wasn't new. 3 mechanisms. Mechanical tension tells the fiber it needs to be stronger. Metabolic stress tells the fiber the environment demands more from it. Muscle damage and repair tells the fiber to physically rebuild itself larger. Every training mistake that kills progress is a failure of at least one of these 3 signals. Too much momentum in the rep, too much rest between sets, or too little progressive demand over time. You don't need a new program. You don't need a different split or a more complicated periodization scheme. You need to understand what your muscle is actually listening for. And now you do. Every rep from here is either sending the signal or it isn't, and you can tell the difference. Subscribe for more and watch the next video. That's where progressive overload actually clicks.